to begin today's hearing.
Hello, good people. I'm so happy to be with you today. My name is mariammemar sadeghi. I participated in this program the very first year it was offered on the bicentennial of the US Constitution. I'm originally from Iran, and over the last 10 years or so, I've helped to adapt, translate this curricula and other curricula from the Center for Civic Education to people living in Iran. We've used technologies like Zoom and social media. I wish you the best today.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Darcy Kern. I'm a professor of history at Southern Connecticut State University, just east of you. And I am also an alumna of the program. I really enjoyed doing it, so I hope you guys have had a good experience as well. We look forward to hearing from you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher Riano. I'm a professor of constitutional law and government at Columbia University, and I'm assistant counsel to the governor in the state of New York.
Could you all introduce yourselves, please, and your teachers?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Veronika Tsiko.
Hi, good morning. My name is Emil Karimov.
Hi, good morning. My name is Viktoria Djombalic.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tatiana Summers.
Hi, good morning. My name is Chelsea Edwards.
And hi, good morning. My name is Sanaa Jason.
And here today we have our coaches, Ms. Azoff, Ms. Kovat, and Ms. Rutter, and our lovely principal, Ms. Cohen.
All right, what I'm going to do is read the question. We're going to get started. Unit 1, the question is the third one. Aristotle asserts in politics that it is not the form of government ruled by the one, the few, or the many that matters most, but rather the ends of government that are most important. Where in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution did the framers set forth the ends of government? How did the framers differ, if at all, about how the ends of government should be prioritized? Which of the ends of government set forth in the Declaration and Constitution appear to have the highest priority today? Please begin.
The Declaration of Independence states that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. To ensure that these rights are protected, the preamble of the United States Constitution establishes justice, ensures domestic tranquility, provides for the common defense, promotes the general welfare, and secures the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity.
With the founding fathers' fear of tyrannical rule, authority was divided between the three branches, thus forming the system of checks and balances. Framers differed in opinion on how the power should be divided between central and state governments. Alexander Hamilton reinforced through Federalist Paper 70 that a unitary executive is necessary to ensure that the president can defend against legislative encroachments of his power. While the Federalists believed that states should unite under a central authority, the Anti-Federalists disagreed, since they believed that the Constitution granted too much power to the central government at the expense of states' interests. However, finding the balance between classical republicanism and individual rights is an essential goal that all framers agreed to be prioritized to form a more perfect union.
Schenck versus United States is an example of the government limiting one of the fundamental rights, freedom of speech, for the common good. However, in Snyder versus Phelps, the Supreme Court held that the First Amendment shields those who protested at the funeral of a military service official from liability. The government is constantly trying to find that perfect balance between individual rights and common good. And so in 1801, the Congress ended the Sedition Act of 1798 that punished all individuals who spoke or published false or malicious writings against the government, as well as pardoned all persons convicted. In times of crisis, yes, citizens often sacrifice their rights for higher levels of protection, much like after 9/11.
The events of 9/11 not only caused airport security, but it also completely changed the surveillance. When the Patriot Act was enacted, it was under criticism due to the fear that the government could go as far as to force public libraries to turn over someone's buying records. Therefore, our country has proven to prioritize what's important for society at that exact moment. In response to the spread of COVID-19, companies like Apple and Google are working with the government to install contact tracing apps in attempts to contain the virus. Congress has also passed a $2 trillion stimulus bill to assist regular Americans, Main Street businesses, hard-hit airlines, and manufacturers through this pandemic.
The protection of U.S. citizens is an end goal for our nation, and sometimes people have to give up their individual rights for the general welfare. The maintenance of domestic tranquility is significant, with history showing the constant challenges people in the government face when trying to bring equality. During the 1950s and 60s, African Americans fought relentlessly to end legalized racial discrimination through protests like the Montgomery bus boycott. Today, movements like the Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement have gained momentum, being recognized as citizens' First Amendment right to peacefully assemble to combat social injustices.
The Bill of Rights is an essential safeguard of individual liberty that the Anti-Federalists sought to establish when the Constitution was written. However, the partisanship in Congress is a tremendous barrier for essential laws like the Equality Act of 2019 being passed and added to the Civil Rights Act. While moving into the 21st century, the government's main goal is to eliminate partisanship and work together to balance the needs of the people. In reaction to combating the pandemic, Governor Cuomo said, "We are not Democrats and we are not Republicans. We are all Americans at the end of the day." The Founding Fathers knew when they wrote the preamble that we, the people of the United States, would be the foundation of the American society.
Time.
Very good. Let me pick up where you left off. Quote from Governor Cuomo, and that we are all Americans. Do you think it's true? Are we unified enough? Do we suffer from polarization? Do you think that even before the Corona crisis, we had a problem with social media and partisanship tearing us apart more than bringing us together?
I think that partisanship is a big problem today, and an issue that everyone should work together and that the government should finally unite. And we can see that through Obama's presidency and then President Trump's presidency. And the government and the people divided on Republicans and Democrats. And in many times, even right now in pandemic, that makes a lot of unnecessary issues. And we have to unite all together. And that's why we're saying that today, the main goal should be to eliminate the partisanship and remember that we're all Americans and that today our issue is to take control over the pandemic of COVID-19 and not care about what we believe in or not.
And also, furthermore, social media has become a huge platform that has really caused this partisanship between Republicans and Democrats, and just a divide as general with fake news being uploaded on the internet and just having social media as a platform to express your opinions, whether they're correct or incorrect. It can cause a lot of tension and a lot of like mixed interpretation. So that's also the con of social media. But as long as we think about the general welfare and finding that healthy balance, then and keeping us as a nation unified, then we'll make it through.
Let me ask this for a second. Talk to me a little bit about Aristotelian virtue and how Aristotelian virtue relates to securing this concept of good government.
The government should always focus on individual rights and common good and the perfect balance of the. And that's the virtue is very important in that idea is that you should always find that balance and make sure that individual rights are not sacrificed for actually unnecessary reasons. And even right now, when you look at our country, many states have different ideas on what the common good is and in what cases we should sacrifice our rights. For New York, for instance, we could look at the idea of giving up our rights to go outside as the necessity to make sure that everyone is safe. But then when you look at the other state, when there's not as many cases of COVID-19, they may look at it and say that it's unnecessary to give up individual rights for the common good right now.
If I may add, the common good versus natural rights is a tremendous barrier right now in our society. We can also see this in the spread of COVID-19, where some might argue that their natural rights are being compromised as they are not able to go outside and participate in religious holidays and practices that they would usually participate in. But however, the common good is also being compromised during this time because citizens have the right to a contract and the right to work and the right to be employed. And now you can see that a lot of the non-essential workers are unemployed in our home and will eventually have trouble providing a life for themselves because now they are unemployed. So now we can see that the common good is also being affected, as well as natural rights.
I also want to agree with my colleagues. Montesquieu also stated that the main purpose of government was to maintain law and order, and it is important now, as of now with this pandemic, to maintain this law and order. Meanwhile, people may feel that their individual rights are being violated, such as the Fourth Amendment or Article 2, and questioning the inherent powers of the president and in absence of congressional authority. But it is also significant to realize that we are trying to create this balance between common good and individual rights.
And also trying to compromise the common good with the general welfare. And after President Donald Trump declared the national emergency on March 13th, the Stafford Act was enacted, which was a federal law that helped with disaster relief with the $50 billion emergency fund that was used to help people, which passed through Congress, the Families First Act that helped, and the CARES Act that also helped fund families that have financial problems, or allows you to get emergency paid leave and sick leave, which could help us through this compromise. Because one thing we could say is, although states have different ideas of their the common good for themselves, we all want to be protected and safe for the whole entire country at the end of the day. So that's one common thing that we could agree on.
You guys mentioned that periods of crisis often lead to the limitation of rights. And I'm curious how we, the people, can most effectively keep our government to its proper ends. How do we hold it responsible? How do we keep it accountable?
I think in many of the cases during war or pandemic, governments do make people sacrifice their individual rights. But I also think that the government is constantly trying to find that balance. And actually the case of Tinker versus Des Moines is an example of where symbolic speech was not limited because it did not cause any civic unrest or any disruption. And so I think the government should have that idea that we should not limit individual rights for unnecessary reasons, but only when common good is to keep us, our citizens, protected. And so I think that idea of we the people is actually the main idea that should keep us. May I have a brief moment to finish it? Thank you. So that idea of we the people should be the main idea that we should focus right now and make sure that our main goal is to keep us safe.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. You all should be proud of yourselves. It was fantastic to listen to you. You're a real team. And I think that you brought in a lot of care and concern for particularly our present circumstances. You have applied what you've learned and thought about through the year in your hard work and preparing, and really applied it to circumstances we're in that are very exceptional, challenges that you see all around you, I think. And I was very touched by how carefully you had applied the constitutional issues, tensions, history, ideas, all of that, but to where we are today and what you think is most important for us as a society. I know it's hard when you can't get together physically to be this prepared and this much of a team, so you should really be proud.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I mean, obviously, you have a big group here, and in the middle of all of these hard questions that we're asking, you all have not only continued to prepare, but I know, right, that you have all gone home. You are doing school from home. You're preparing from home. You've all had to switch everything to Zoom, and all of these other, ways to connect. You all did a great job working together. You have a member that's on the phone. That was great. Everybody participated, and I thought that was wonderful. You answered the questions we asked. I'm very, very impressed because I know better than most the type of stressors that everybody's under. And I thought that each of you had a good answer in the beginning. You had a very well thought through introduction, and then you carried that through with our hard questions. So, I'm always proud of New York, but I'm particularly proud. You guys did a really great job today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, I thought this was a really interesting speech and follow-up. You guys raised some really important points, and you kept emphasizing balance and compromise over, a healthy balance over and over again. And I think that's really important because no one is ever going to think the same, right? People are always going to have differences. And, your answers to my questions were very good. I mean, Chelsea, you mentioned the protest by African Americans in the 50s and 60s. And then Veronika, you brought up the court, using the courts as a way to challenge. So you have protests as well as the courts. That was very good. And another question I wanted to ask you was, can partisanship ever be healthy? And I think the fact that you guys even are raising these issues speaks to the depth of your knowledge and the way that you have thought about them. And so I really enjoyed this. It was a pleasure to hear you.